My name is Hazel Cooper, and I am 23 years old. I live in Lakeside Hollow, a picturesque small town where the air is filled with the scent of blooming flowers in spring and the sunsets cast a golden hue over the still waters of the lake. Lakeside Hollow was once my haven, a place where I felt safe, wrapped in the warmth of my family and friends. But life has a funny way of flipping a fairy tale on its head. When I think back on those days, vivid memories flash like fireflies, my childhood colored by laughter and the sweet musical notes of my father's guitar and my mother's humming filling the air like an invisible blanket that kept the chill of reality at bay. My mother, with her vibrant smile and infectious laughter, always had a way of brightening my darkest days. When she would lean down to tie my shoes or swirl me around in her arms as we danced in the kitchen, I thought magic existed in the mundane. My father, the stern yet loving voice of reason, was my rock. He taught me about strength and resilience, bolstering my spirit with softly spoken wisdom like "Stand tall, Hazel. The world may try to push you down, but you can always rise again." That was before everything changed. It was a chilly autumn evening, the air tinged with the scent of crisp leaves and decay, when our world came crashing down. I remember the soft autumn twilight spilling into our cozy living room, casting a warm glow over my parents as they sat together on the couch, laughter bubbling between them like a seltzer fizzing in a glass. It was an ordinary day like any other until suddenly everything turned bleak. My father crumpled to the floor like a paper bag caught in a gust of wind. His laughter was replaced with gasps of pain as I rushed to his side, my heart racing like a startled rabbit. I saw my mother drop to her knees, her face pale as a ghost, and scream, "Call for help, please." The hospital we frequented in Lakeside Hollow soon became a second home, filled with antiseptic smells and murmurs of hope that ultimately felt fragile. The diagnosis was swift and cruel: cancer. I remember the cold numbness that settled in my chest as the news echoed in my mind. It was like a bitter winter storm that swept through our family, freezing the warmth we once shared and leaving us icy and isolated. Words like stage 4 and treatment options floated in the air, heavy and alarming, yet they hung there intangible, as if we were all too stunned to fully comprehend what had just descended upon us. As time marched forward like the ticking of a clock, relentlessly counting down our precious seconds, my mother struggled to hold our broken family together. But instead of bonding us, something insidious crept in. Anger, fear, and resentment sank into our hearts like shadows. I watched as my mother, once so lively, morphed into a version of herself I barely recognized. Her vibrant smile faded, and although she tried to be strong, cracks formed in her spirit, one jagged fissure at a time. The tension in our home grew thick, each angry word ricocheting like bullets in the air, leaving deep, invisible wounds. "Hazel, why can't you do something? Why can't you be more helpful?" My mother would snap when the weight of the world pressed too heavily upon her. "I can hardly think straight with your father's situation." Every time she lashed out, it was like a dagger piercing my heart, and though I longed to help, I felt like a mere spectator in my own home, a tragic play on a stage where love had turned to anguish. The chaos swirled around me, and I felt lost and adrift in that storm of shattered dreams. To add salt to my fresh wounds, that same week, I received a call from my biological family. They had heard about my father's battles, and just like that, their shadows slithered back into my life, bringing with them echoes of a past I had fought hard to leave behind. They wanted to reconnect, not out of love or concern, but because they sensed vulnerability and wanted to worm their way back in. I had spent years trying to erase their existence from my mind, attempting to bury the painful memories where they could no longer reach me. "Hazel, darling." The voice of my estranged aunt rang out like an unwelcome chime, grating on my already frayed nerves. "We heard about your father. How terrible. You must be feeling so alone. You know we care about you, don't you? We want to help." I restrained the urge to scream. I played along at first, giving them the benefit of the doubt, hoping perhaps they had changed. But as the days dragged into weeks and their intentions turned clear, hope dwindled faster than flickering candlelight. All they wanted was to exploit my father's situation for their gain. I could hear the pitch of my aunt's voice, sweet as honey, masking the sticky traps of manipulation laid like bait before desperate eyes. "Just think, Hazel," she said over the phone one evening, her tone dripping with false sweetness. "If your father needs someone to talk to, we could be there for him. Everyone needs family, right?" As I listened to her words, bile rose in my throat. They didn't care about him or about me. They only wanted to gain something, perhaps access to our family's finances or a chance to manipulate my father's vulnerability. It sickened me to realize that this deception was always their modus operandi. They laid sweet traps with lies, and my father, in his weakened state, faltered in their presence. Devastated, I recalled my father's expressive eyes, once filled with life and determination, now dimmed by the weight of illness and the pressure of unwanted intrusion. "Stay away from my family." I wanted to scream into the phone, but my voice caught in my throat. What good would it do? Instead, I channeled my anguish into my music, desperate to escape the suffocating reality looming over us. I remember retreating to my room, the familiar sounds of my guitar strings offering sanctuary against the chaos. I let go of my identity as Hazel, shedding the remnants of my past like old skin. I embraced the name Francis, pouring my heart into my first EP, each note a cathartic release from the prison of despair. It felt like the only way to escape, transforming my pain into something beautiful, as if I could weave the threads of my grief into musical tapestries. That summer, I performed at local venues where the applause was a balm, an illusion of acceptance and understanding. But no matter how loud the crowd cheered, I knew it was not enough. It wouldn't fill the gaping void left by the cracks in my foundation. The betrayal, however, was not just from my biological family. It was more than that. I felt anger burning deep within my core, constant and rising like an untamed fire. Each interaction with them emphasized the weight of their betrayal, and it became an anchor dragging me deeper. My heart was heavy whenever I thought of how they had slithered their way back into my father's life, digging into his vulnerabilities as if he were a mere stepping stone to their goals. I had one goal now, the desperation to act swiftly and decisively burning brightly in my mind. I could no longer remain paralyzed by fear or grief. I would not let them shatter my family again. I envisioned the elaborate web I would weave for them, a network of their own traps, outsmarting them with strategies made of cunning and resolve. Those thoughts danced and twirled in my mind, each spin fueling determination, and thus on a fateful night under the shimmering light of the stars, I found clarity in my resolve. The brilliant moon hung high, casting silvery beams of light upon the lake, transforming the water into a liquid mirror. I sat on the dock that extended into the darkness, my guitar cradled in my arms. Strumming the strings, I let the sound carry my emotions, wrapping my grief and rage into every chord. The whispering breeze wrapped around me like a comforting embrace, and for the first time in months, I felt truly alive. I had the power within me, all I needed to do was harness it. With each note reverberating through the air, I knew the time for action was near. I would reclaim my family from the clutches of deceit and malice. As the guitar echoed the rhythms of my heart, I set my resolve. This would be the beginning of my plan, a calculated move against the interlopers who had dared to infiltrate our lives in our most vulnerable hour. With a soundness of spirit and a tumult of emotions, I felt like a warrior readying for battle, harnessing every ounce of resilience I had inherited from my parents. Though shattered, my fairy tale was not yet over. The story was merely unfolding, and the final act would be a testament to my will to protect and persevere. With my heart racing, I knew that my revenge could not be impulsive, it had to be calculated and precise. I spent endless nights alone in my bedroom, candles flickering as the shadows danced against the walls, devising my plan. The faint scent of wax and smoke clung to the air, mingling with the scent of old books that lined my cramped shelves. Each flicker of flame felt like a heartbeat, each shadow a reminder of what I was fighting against. It felt like I was playing a game of chess, and I needed to be 3 moves ahead. My mind was a battleground of emotions, where rage battled with the remnants of my childhood affection for my father and the family he had been desperate to reconnect with. I dove into researching my biological family's past, unearthing secrets they would have preferred stayed buried. It was like peeling back layers of an onion. Each layer revealed more lies, more manipulation. I recalled the stories my father used to tell during bedtime, tales of a close-knit family where every member supported the others. The lies they had woven around me faded with each new piece of information I uncovered. I scoured public records, contacted old friends, and pieced together a narrative that connected the dots of their deceit, like stitching together a frayed tapestry. Each discovery fueled my determination. Their names, once shrouded in respectability, began to sparkle with treachery that sparkled like shards of glass hidden beneath a snow-covered driveway. Late one night, after poring over documents that spoke of manipulation and betrayal, I felt the weight of my mission settle like a stone in my stomach. As I read about my family exploiting others, those innocent lives shattered for their gain, the warmth of vengeance ignited within me. I crafted documents detailing their misdeeds. Each typed word felt like a blade, sharpened with every choice I made. I wanted the world to see them for what they truly were, wolves in sheep's clothing. However, a storm was brewing in my thoughts. My friends had begun to notice my change in demeanor. One afternoon, my best friend Mia dropped by, her brow creased with concern. Her soft brown eyes, usually sparkling with laughter, now held a flicker of worry I couldn't ignore. The sunlight danced through the window, creating a warm golden glow, but all I felt was the cold grip of isolation. Hazel, are you okay? You have been acting so different lately. It is like you are in a different world, she breathed, breaking the silence that enveloped us. There was a genuine worry in her voice, as though she could sense the shadows that curled around my mind. I forced a smile, even as my hands trembled with raw emotion. I am fine, Mia, just busy with personal projects. The words felt like stones spilling from my mouth. How could I lay this burden on her, the excitement of my plan torching a fire within me, but I was certain it was a fire she wouldn't understand. Are you sure that is all? You can talk to me, you know, she pressed on, leaning forward, her fingertips brushing the edge of my desk. I forced my gaze away, focusing on the array of papers that littered the surface instead of the concern embedded in her words. I felt vulnerable under her scrutiny. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. It is nothing really, just trying to sort through some family stuff. A fleeting shadow crossed her face, but she nodded slowly, the concern evident yet unvoiced. Okay, but just know I am here for you. The warmth of her words fluttered in my heart, dissolving the icy resolve that had built up around it, but deep down I felt like I was a ticking time bomb ready to explode at any moment. I had to keep my vengeance a secret, the plan igniting a fire within me that I had never felt before. I could not afford to worry her about the darkness that was spreading through me, consuming moments when I felt lighter and pulling me deeper into shadows. Every piece of evidence I gathered felt like strength building inside me, lifting me higher, goal clearer each day. As the days turned into nights, I found myself consumed by this unfolding drama. I was enmeshed in the histories of my biological family, and as I followed back the threads, I learned of betrayals that had brought them wealth at the expense of others. The names of those who had suffered at their hands became etched in my mind. Each betrayal felt like a cut that spread and festered within my heart. How could they do this? How could my own family lie, cheat, and manipulate? Each accounted step forward prickled my skin with purpose. Yet just as I was feeling the thrill of my plan, hoping for justice for those who could not stand, everything began to crumble. I summoned the courage to confront my father about their deceit one evening as we sat at the dining table, the tension heavy in the air. The way he sat, hunched over his plate, looked so fragile. His white hair, once so full of color and life, now appeared feeble, and his tired eyes seemed to carry the weight of 1,000 unspoken sorrows. Dad, I need to talk to you about something important, I ventured cautiously, trying to sound calm, but inside I was teetering on the edge of chaos. The walls felt as if they were closing in around us, suffocating as I clutched the papers in my hands. What is it, Hazel? His voice was a gravelly rasp, the timbre heavy like stones dropped into the stillness. Taking a deep breath, I felt the words clench my heart. It is about the family reaching out to you. They are not here for you. They only want to take advantage of you. Please believe me. I had practiced this moment over and over in my mind, hoping against hope that the reality of my words could cut through whatever veil of longing enveloped him. In that moment, something shifted in my father. Instead of the understanding I had hoped for, he recoiled. My bravery was met with disbelief, and anger flashed across his face like a sudden thunderstorm breaking through a clear sky. You do not know them like I do. They are trying to reconnect. You need to stop talking about them that way. I felt the sting of his words like a slap across my face. My heart sank, the weight of his anger bore down on me, and just like that, my perfect plan spiraled out of control. Every shred of confidence I had built flickered like an unsteady flame. Dad, please, I pressed, my voice trembling as frustration seeped into my tone. They are not your family, they abandoned you. All this time they stayed away, and now that they smell your vulnerability, they're back. You are a pawn in their game. His eyes narrowed at me, disbelief piercing the air. You think you understand? You talk about abandonment as if it is some badge of honor. They care, they want to be part of our lives. The words felt like venom, twisting his gaze towards the doorway as if longing for them to reappear, his memories of familial love drowning out my warnings. They do not care, I pleaded, tears welling in my eyes. My fingers accidentally crumpled the documents I had meant to use as proof of their ill intentions. Do you not understand the deceit woven into their stories? You are blinded by nostalgia, by the way you want the world to be. His fork clattered against the plate as he slammed his hands onto the table, anger morphing into a fierce frustration. You are so young, so blind to the complexities of family. You do not know the kinds of choices I had to make, the ways I tried to keep us together. My lungs tightened, choking against the bitterness that swelled between us like a storm. But they had a choice too. They chose to exploit you. Can't you see that? They twisted the truth when you were at your weakest. Each word was a direct hit to the heart, and I could feel the strange turn of emotions dangling between us. The distance darkened, sending shadows creeping between us that felt insurmountable. The once familiar space seemed filled with an unyielding chasm, widening with every second. He shook his head, the disappointment etched in every line on his face. I cannot talk to you when you are like this. I need you to understand I am still your father. Yes, but I need you to realize the truth, I shouted back in despair, feeling the walls close in even further as hopelessness washed over me. And in that moment, I felt as if my entire plan lay in ruins, a house of cards collapsing in spirals around us. Instead of unity, I felt the distance between us growing. My meticulous plan now hung by a thread, teetering at the edge of the abyss. Desperation clawed at me as I watched my father retreat back into the shadows of anger and confusion, and the walls of my world grew even more confining. With the sunlight streaming in through the half-drawn curtains, it illuminated the little flecks of dust that danced between us, mirroring the chaos within my heart. I could hardly breathe as I stared at my father's back, seeing how his posture was slouched in defeat, encapsulating everything I felt. The air was thick, suffocating, it tugged unrelentingly at my lungs. Even the chirping of the early morning birds could not shake this sense of dread. In that moment, it felt like I was standing on the edge of a precipice, fear pushing me forward while despair pulled me back. I was at my lowest, urging my heart to remain steadfast even when the hurt pushed me to the brink of despair. The weight of the secrets hanging over our family felt like chains around my ankles. For days, silence filled every corner of our home, and in that silence, the pit in my stomach grew heavier. After long nights of tossing and turning, frantically second-guessing every decision I had made, everything came crashing down. I could not carry this burden alone any longer. On a sunny afternoon, when the world outside seemed blissfully unaware of the turmoil brewing within my family, I finally made my final decision. I needed to do something bold, something that would cut through the fog of manipulation that surrounded us. It was time to set my plan in motion. I arranged everything meticulously, each detail carefully accounted for, like a puzzle slowly coming together in my mind. The gravity of what I was about to do surged through me, creating a whirlwind of anticipation and fear tangled together in my core. I could see it so clearly now. The first step would be to expose their deceit publicly. I knew I had to draw attention to their betrayal, to shine a light on the darkness they had infested in our lives. I spent hours reviewing every document, every text message, every image that painted the damning picture of their betrayal. As I prepared to send these documents to a prominent local news outlet, my heart raced at the thought of it. What if it backfired? What if they turned it against me? The morning of the release was tense. It felt like time had slowed down around me, each second dragging along like a heavy anchor. As the sun edged higher in the sky and illuminated my laptop screen, I crafted a heartfelt message to accompany the documents. I explained to the editor the gravity of my father's predicament and how their manipulations had wreaked havoc on our family. I poured my heart into each word, writing about the pain we endured and the lies that had threatened to tear us apart. As I pressed send, my pulse quickened. I could feel the weight of the world on my shoulders, knowing my actions would irrevocably change the dynamics of my family and unveil a darkness our small town had never seen before. The backlash was immediate and fierce. Once the story broke, it felt like a bomb had dropped in our once harmonious lives. My biological family was thrust into the harsh light of public scrutiny. Every secret we had tried to bury resurfaced, splattered across every local news channel like some grotesque mural. I watched as they scrambled, their reactions swift. Denial turned to anger, and they fought furiously against the glaring truths that could no longer be hidden. I could only stand back and watch, my heart racing on behalf of a father I desperately wanted to believe in. How could you do this? I heard my father bark over the phone, his disappointment nearly tangible, echoing through the line like thunder. I flinched but held my ground. I did this for us, I replied, my voice steady even as it quaked with underlying emotion. You deserve to know, Dad, you were never a pawn in their game, you were a man caught off guard. The distance created by our tumultuous past felt like an ocean between us. Even with the phone pressed close to my ear, I could hear the clenching of his jaw even without seeing him. I did not want you mixed up in this. You're so young, you don't understand what you've done. Oh, and you do? You didn't see what I saw, how they plotted and planned behind our backs. You didn't want to believe they were poisoning our family. I was nearly shouting now, my furious reverberations filling the empty space of my room, space that felt so suffocating. Yet what came next was much quieter, a weariness seeping into his voice. What do I do now? I don't know how to handle any of this. My words fell like fragile glass, shattering the last remnants of distance between us. We face this together, I said softly. We figure it out side by side. Moments later, I was swept into a whirlwind of messages and notifications, each one a mixture of anxiety and unexpected support. Countless messages poured in from friends and distant acquaintances who had heard whispers of our struggle. I'm here for you, one friend wrote. You are not alone, said another. Each message whispered strength into the chaos that had consumed me, igniting a newfound sense of power that swept over me. It was intoxicating to see them cornered, their facades cracking under the immense pressure they had created. As the hours passed, I paced back and forth, anticipation coursing through my veins as adrenaline fed my resolve. The phone against my ear heated as messages, phone calls, social media alerts flooded in. My father fell silent, the shock behind his eyes evident, but there was something more. It was almost as if he was awakening from a deep slumber, waking to see the world around him for the first time. Then when I least expected it, he was suddenly standing in my doorway, a tangible presence that sent ripples of unpredictability through me. His expression, a mix of shock, hurt, and something I dared to hope was understanding. Why did you not tell me? He asked, incredulity tinged with anger. I tried to save us. My voice broke slightly, emotions thinning out the veneer I had managed to hold onto. I could not let them win, Dad. You deserved better than to be a pawn in their game of manipulation, his face contorted, mirroring my anguish. But this could tear us apart. All I have ever wanted was to keep you safe. I took a step closer, my heart pounding in my chest. You are not just a bystander, Dad. You need to see the truth. I gestured emphatically, as if the chaos swirling around us could be contained with a simple wave. This is not just about you anymore. It is about us and how they have tried to destroy our family from the inside out. And then came the unexpected, a moment I had longed for yet feared for so long. He stepped forward, his arms pulling me into a fierce embrace. The world around us faded into the background noise, and I felt the warmth of his body seep into my very soul, the scent of aftershave swirling around us, and the tension between us began to untangle. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, I felt like he truly saw me. His fear and anger melted slightly in that embrace, and I wished desperately to bury my own pain with his. It hurts, doesn't it? He whispered, his voice cracking. Yes, I breathed, my heart still fragile. But we can make it through this, together. As we pulled back to look into each other's eyes, I saw the flicker of vulnerability reflected there, a rare moment but a promising one. Despite all that had transpired, I felt a swell of hope, a fragile, flickering flame among the ashes. The defeat of our enemies can strengthen us, Dad, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. This situation doesn't have to define us. Our bond was an intricate tapestry woven from grief, love, and now a sense of newfound understanding. The world outside still turned, moving along the familiar paths, blissfully unaware of the storm we had endured and how it transformed us. In that small room, amidst the chaos swirling from the release of the documents, I now moved closer to the realization that we could rebuild. The betrayal they multiplied began to unravel. The release of the documents had done more than expose them, it united my father and me. And from that moment forward, I knew we would wage this war together. The weeks that followed the storm of chaos felt almost surreal, like watching an old movie reel flicker to life. The local community, once wrapped in the muffled tones of gossip and speculation, now vibrated with a feeling of togetherness that tasted like hope renewed. Every day, my father and I would venture out into this world that had once felt hostile, the air buzzing with the warmth of shared smiles and reassuring nods. The little things started to matter again, the laughter of children playing in the park, the fragrant aroma of fresh coffee wafting through the tiny cafe where we spent time talking about the simplest joys in life. I had never truly understood how fragile ties could be until everything fell apart. Now, watching the community busy themselves with projects to help us, I felt the delicate threads weaving tighter around us, forming an unbreakable bond. As my father leaned into his recovery, I watched him find new strength in therapy. He spoke with a gentleness that warmed my heart, his voice pouring over his struggles with a mixture of vulnerability and hope. You know, I used to think healing meant forgetting, he said one afternoon, sitting on our porch with the sun filtering through the branches of the old oak tree. But it really means letting the pain teach you something and carrying it with grace. I remember nodding, my heart swelling with pride and admiration for this man who fought so bravely against the demons of his past. Francis, I whispered to myself, reveling in the new identity I had carved out of the ashes of what once was. There was a fire ignited within me that pulsed through my veins, winding its way through each beat of my heart, giving me the courage that I had searched for. Francis was not just a persona, she was a banner, something to rise behind as I reclaimed my art, my voice. Night after night, I found myself on stage again, singing. My songs were imbued with raw emotion, each lyric a thread pulled from my soul, woven into melodies that depicted my journey, a tapestry of triumphs and trials. The applause that followed spoke not just to my talent but to the message I carried, a message that did not silence the pain but embraced it, transforming it into something profound. In those weeks, my EP was pieced together like a puzzle made of love and pain. Each track, a reflection of the battles we faced, resonated with others who had felt lost and alone. They came up to me, eyes shining with tears of understanding, their hands clasping mine as they whispered, "Thank you for saying what I couldn't." With each story shared, the silence that lingered in the corners of my heart melted away. This particular evening, though, was a moment of peace layered on thoughts of the past and aspirations for the future. The sun began to sink, painting the sky in soft hues of orange and pink, strokes of color mixing together like the vibrant threads of our lives intertwining. The warm breeze gently tousled my hair, carrying with it the earthy scent of the approaching night, bringing memories of days spent by the lake where calm waters whispered secrets only nature could understand. Hazel, my father's voice broke through my reverie, light and melodic like the evening breeze. I want you to know that I am proud of you. His words dripped with sincerity, and I felt a bloom of warmth radiate within me. You turned a dark moment into a powerful one. You have become a voice for those who do not feel they have one. Thank you, Dad, I replied, the words barely escaping my lips before I felt a rush of emotion well up inside me. This journey was not simple, but knowing I fought for our family makes all the difference. My gaze traveled to the horizon where the sun danced on the surface of the lake, the flickers of light playing like a symphony upon the water. It is in moments of darkness that we find out what we are made of, he continued thoughtfully, placing a hand on my shoulder. You have shown resilience I never knew you had. The warmth from his touch wrapped around me, grounding me in this fleeting moment. I could see the years falling away as he spoke, the burden of his past lifting slightly with each honest word. You know, some time ago I was worried this darkness might swallow us whole, I shared, my voice soft yet steady. I had considered retreating, giving up on everything we had built, but then I saw you fighting back, choosing to rise each time you fell, and it inspired me. He looked at me with such a mixture of love and relief that I could almost feel the heavy weight of all the tears he did not shed sliding off his shoulders. Our battles are never easy, but together we can face them. And you have taught me that strength is found in vulnerability. Just then, as though the universe sprinkled magic dust over us, the last rays of sunlight kissed the lake, transforming it into a shimmering mirror that reflected the beauty around us. The air smoothed out, chilling just enough to send gentle shivers down my arms, but I didn't mind. This was our rebirth, a moment stitched together by the grace we had learned to embrace. We've always been a family of fighters, I mused, glancing at him with a smile. We stand up for what is right no matter the cost, that's who we are. Exactly, he agreed, his eyes glimmering like stars being unveiled in the evening sky. And you, Hazel, have transformed Francis from mere survival into real thriving. You've woven your truth into something not just for you, but for everyone around us. For a heartbeat, the world fell away. It was just us on that porch, bonds weaving together on countless threads of love, pain, and healing. It's funny, Dad, I said, reflecting on just how far we had come. I once thought revenge would be my only path forward. I now see it's a reawakening. Francis is not born out of hate, but from an unwavering love for who we are and who we can be. Revenge can sometimes feel sweet as a fleeting thrill, he added with a knowing nod, but what you have chosen is true empowerment. That's the transformation. There was wisdom in his words, and I felt an epiphany wash over me. The shadows of the past lingered still, yet they no longer defined me. As night descended softly around us, cloaking us in its cloak of tranquility, I closed my eyes for a fleeting moment, allowing the whispers of our achievements and sorrows to mingle in the air around us. The melody of hope rang within me like a symphony, flooding my heart and fueling a fire I never wanted to extinguish. No matter the storms that dared to challenge my spirit, I now stood tall with my head held high, embracing the future we would build anew. Shall we? I asked, holding my hand toward him, ready to take the next step forward. We hadn't just survived the turbulence that life threw our way, we had flourished. He chuckled softly, the sound echoing like a gentle ripple across the surface of the lake. Of course, my dear, together always. As we bound into the twilight side by side, the bond between us felt forever entwined in the fabric of who we would become. The shadows continued to fade behind me, and for the first time, I felt a sense of release. Frances was born out of betrayal, yes, but she thrived in love, resilience, and sheer determination. The scars of the past served as a reminder of battles fought and won, transforming each wound into strength that would propel us into a promising tomorrow. With unwavering faith and renewed courage, we stepped into the unknown, ready to embrace whatever awaited us in the future.